Hello and a very warm welcome to all our viewers. Welcome to EDUPATH, the Journey of Success, a web interview series brought to you by Expert Group of Institutions, Alumni Association. India is a diverse country with billions of people having various kinds of beliefs, varying views, varying perceptions. Superstition in India has long been considered a widespread social problem. Some beliefs and practices which may be considered superstitious by some may not be considered so by others. But we have one person who has been continuously fighting against these superstitious beliefs, against all odds and challenges. We are extremely happy to welcome Professor Narendra Nayak to this show. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to take this opportunity to give a brief introduction of our guest today. Professor Nayak is the president of the Federation of Indian Rationalist Associations. He founded the Dakshina Kannada Rationalist Association in 1976 to fight superstitious practices and expose the miracles of so-called godmen. A polyglot who speaks 9 languages fluently, he has conducted over 3,000 miracle exposure and science popularization shows and trained several hundred activists. He addresses gatherings in villages, in schools, as well as important high-level workshops on science. The sessions are also quite entertaining and make for spectacular visuals. National Geographic Channel, Discovery Channel, and Australia's Channel 9 have all showcased his work. He is a national level resource person for the National Council for Science and Technology and has played an important role in the Children's Science Congress in India. In 2011, he was awarded the Distinguished Service to Humanism Award from the International Humanist and Ethical Union. We are pleased to have you on this program, sir. Welcome once again.
Thank you very much, Ankush, that you are giving me this opportunity to speak to your students as well as the public.
Thank you, sir. So I think when we want to begin, we want to understand this term rationalist is something that we have probably heard a lot, but not many people know the meaning of that. There are different terms like rationalist, humanist,
Yes.
and what does this term mean? And could you explain
Right.
something about it?
Thank you very much for giving me this question, because generally atheism, rationalism, humanism are all rolled into one and confused. You see, atheism is just a conclusion that there is no supernatural power. Rationalism is a method of investigation that you put things to the test of reason before you come to conclusions. And humanism is a stage above all that in which we consider all human beings are as equal, regardless of their religion, their ethnic origin, their belief in a belief system or a lack of belief in one, their sexual orientation, gender, or whatever it is. The term humanist denotes those people who stand for equality of all human beings. And again, for us, there's only one dogma, and if you can call it a dogma, that is the basic charter of human rights, as it may be amended from time to time. We also hold that every human being has a right to happiness, provided it doesn't infringe over the human rights of others. So that's how we look at it.
Right. That's a wonderful introduction, I would say, to what this is all about. You've had a long career in busting myths or miracles and fighting superstition. When and how did you start investigating and debunking so-called miracles and supernatural phenomena?
Usually, people start from the bottom and they go up. They start questioning the so-called miracle and superstition, and then finally they end up saying that there is no supernatural force. But in my case, I came the other way around. I came from the top downwards. At the age of 11 or so, I had come to the conclusion that there is no supernatural power. And with that conclusion, I was going around. But I don't think it was arrived at by any very rational experimentation or anything like that. It was a conclusion arrived at by experimentation, which was very sort of random and unscientific. But I came to the conclusion at a very young age. And then, as I grew up, I started questioning these things. And maybe when I joined for post graduation at Kasturba Medical College, Manipal, it was an opportunity for me to learn human anatomy, physiology, as well as coming into contact with many people. And where I started my questioning process in earnest, along with scientific investigation of the so-called paranormal phenomenon. And in 1976, we organized a program by Abraham Kovoor in Mangalore, and it was a big hit. And that time I decided that once I retired from my job, I'll devote all my time for the mission like he has done. And in 1980, 81, I met B. Premanand, was going around the country demonstrating the so-called miracles of the godmen and explaining them. No, along with Kovoor, a man had come who would do all these miracles, and he would do everything, and his conclusion was one line. The godmen say that that is a miracle. I say it's not a miracle, that's all. But Premanand brought a more rational explanation into that by explaining how those things are done. And then I took it to a higher level by going more into the science of those things. And so that's how the progress started. And as we went on, we started encountering people with so-called supernatural powers, and naturally people would ask us, how do they do it? So we learned to do more and more things, exposing them, performing them, challenging them, and more importantly, demonstrating it to the people that you don't need any supernatural powers to do the apparently supernatural things that the so-called miracle men do. So that is where.
Right. And I think one major part of where your life changed was probably where you quit your full-time job to become someone who fights these superstitions all the time. Now, most people have this dream of finding the right job and settling in a certain profession. And you were an academician with a steady job in an institution, and you gave it up to fight against superstitions full time. So, what led to such a decision?
See, it was not a revolutionary process, but of course there was something like a last straw. As it is, I was busy with these programs going all around the country in between my classes and my exams and whatever little research work that I was doing. And but of course, I had to always come back and finish the task at hand, and I had to plan my activities according to that. And in 2004, an incident really shook me to the core. It was that a 80-year-old girl was sacrificed in a place, in a small village, I don't know the name, of a district in Karnataka, Gulbarga district, in a taluk called as Alant. This girl was flayed. Can you imagine that? An 80-year-old girl flayed. And the mantrik was sitting on the skin and thinking that he can see visualize some treasure through that. That really shook me. And I thought that my job is interfering too much with my activity, so I'll devote all my time for it. And so I quit. I decided to quit. And I went and told the head of the institution that I'm going to quit. And then he said, okay, you are going to quit. What are you going to do for a living? I said, don't worry, I'll do something I know how to make money. I said namaskar to him, waved my hand in the air like this, and when I kept on waving my hand in the air like this, I got a brand new 100 rupee note from there, and I told him, here it is. This is how I learn my living. I know to make money. Jokes apart, you know what he did? He came to the other side of his table and told me, Narendra, teach me. I will also quit. Jokes apart. This was not his reaction. He said, you are a good teacher, your students love you. We have permitted you to go wherever you like. I said, I was taking my leave. Okay. But he said, please don't. Continue teaching here. I said, sorry, my country needs me more. So I quit. But when I went to write my resignation letter, My colleagues who were my students told me, sir, why do you want to quit now? You exhaust your leave and then you can go. We'll adjust classes for you. So up to 2006, I kept on taking my leave and then going for my activities. And then in 2006, I resigned. And then all my time was devoted to the cause. And the cause is making the people think rationally.
Right. It is, I think, a very, very brave decision that most people are unable to take. But the higher calling here did not come from some sort of religious moral, but it came from something that was raw and real right in front of you. That is something great.
No, it was, as I am telling you, it was the last straw.
Right.
Even before that, I have been going all around the country. See, for the National Children's Science Congress, I was a sort of a fixture. Right from the first National Children's Science Congress to the one in 2015, I have been a regular invitee, and the children always are exposed to me, and all the teachers, the escorting teachers who come, they have attend workshops by me, and that is how I was spreading the message of rational thinking. And it is not something which is outside the laws of the land. Article 51AH of the Constitution of India says it is the duty of every citizen to develop scientific temper, the spirit of inquiry, and humanism. So, it is my constitutional duty, and that's what I am doing.
Right. Sir, talking about the constitutional duty, as you said, Article 51AH rightly says that it's a citizen's duty to develop scientific temper. But when you fight superstition, you inadvertently end up also sometimes hurting people's religious sentiments. And there are provisions in IPC like Section 295A or 298 that have been invoked time and again against people whenever religious sentiments are supposedly hurt. So how do you balance this in your life?
See, I tell people these are my conclusions. They are purely temporary. And the most important thing is, I am not attacking your method of worship. I am saying, well, if you are doing it, do your puja, do it. I am not doing it. That's my personal thing. And if you are doing it, it's your personal thing. But see that those rituals, those beliefs do not interfere in the fields of education, health, public policy, and your relationship with others. See, you may do a namaz, another fellow may pray in a church, and third fellow may do a puja, but see that they do not conflict with each other. Do it in your own private space. That is what I keep emphasizing with people. I am not against your personal belief systems as long as they do not interfere with the public policies and health and all that, as I've been telling you.
Right. So we have an audience question. So before I take this audience question, I would like to remind all our viewers that you can send your questions live by WhatsApp to the number that's displayed on your screen, that is 82964 You can definitely send your questions there. We have one question, it's in Hindi, from Ravi Roshan Kumar, an educator from Darbhanga, Bihar. He says, सर विद्यालय में बच्चों को अंधविश्वास से दूर रखना आसान है, किंतु वही बच्चे अपने घर पर जो रिचुअल्स होते हैं उनमें व्याप्त अंधविश्वास का विरोध नहीं कर पाते हैं. इसके लिए क्या किया जाए?
देखो भाई, बात तो ये है कि आपने एक शब्द का प्रयोग किया जिसको अंधविश्वास कहते हैं. अंधविश्वास तो ठीक नहीं है, क्योंकि एक बार मैंने एक विजुअली हैंडीकैप्ड लोगों के लिए एक इंस्टीट्यूशन है देहरादून में, वहाँ मैंने अंधविश्वास बोला, तो उधर एक जो अंधे थे वो बोले कि आप गलत कह रहे हैं कि अंधों को वैज्ञानिक सोच नहीं है, तो गलत विश्वास है. देखिए, रिचुअल्स अगर किसी के पब्लिक लाइफ में या पर्सनल रिलेशनशिप्स में इंटरफेयर नहीं होते तब करना, भाई हम क्या करें. लेकिन अगर अस्पताल जाने के खिलाफ आप किसी रिचुअल करें तो प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगा. अगर आप पूजा करते हैं घर में, दिवाली मनाते, भाई मना दो, एज लॉन्ग एज यू डू नॉट पोल्यूट द एनवायरनमेंट, एज लॉन्ग एज यू डू नॉट कॉज प्रॉब्लम्स फॉर अदर्स. So that is my policy.
Right. Sir, India is a nation that is deeply rooted in religion and superstition. What are the greatest challenges that you have faced in creating awareness amongst the people?
See, one thing that you said is India deeply rooted in religion. In this is the country where 2500 years back, Gautam Buddha said, question anything before you accept it. So it's not all that deeply rooted in religion. There are two religions in India which are atheistic, which do not have any supernatural powers, Jainism and Buddhism. But the rituals, the lack of exposure to reasoning, I should say, not to education. Maybe the illiteracy that was there because of the caste system has kept away people from thinking, from getting exposed to what is happening in this world. And maybe that is why the purveyors of superstitions have had a field day here from centuries.
Right. Sir, in your initial days of your activism, I remember still not our generation, but before that, from our parents' generation, there are a lot of people who remember the Ganesha drinking milk phenomenon, which you helped create awareness against. But in those initial days, you must have faced quite a lot of criticism and hate from the people. Of course, today at the stage that you are in, you might not care about all of that. But there are a lot of youngsters who want to join the rationalist movement today. How do they overcome that resistance or the criticism that the society shows to people who try to go against the flow of the society?
It is not going against the flow of the society. Most of the people whom I meet do know that there is something wrong, but they are unable to do anything about it, and they do not have any examples before them. For example, when it came to my marriage, of course, as you say, you attain a marriageable age, then people start asking you, when do you get married? I said, I'll get married under my own terms and conditions, because I am against dowry. There will be no give and take. I am against religious rituals, so there will not be any religious rituals. I am against wastage of money, so there will not be any wastage of money. And they said, in that case, you will never get married at all. I said, okay, let's see what happens. Then I managed to get married with a cost of 27 rupees 50 paise. I do not want to announce it publicly because many times I ask a question asking, how much did my marriage cost? If you guess properly, I'll give you some 500 rupees. And now people have got the answer. So, and there were 17 people for the lunch. And there was no religious ritual. There was only the sub-register there. There was no matching of horoscopes. There was no give and take. And I do not know to what extent parental interference from her side, but on my side, absolutely nothing. Because when I told my mother, I won't be there for dinner today, she said, why? I said, I'm going to meet a girl. She said, okay. She didn't even ask anything. Then when I came home in the night, she said, did you meet her? I said, yes. She said, have you decided, what did you decide? I said, I decided to marry her. Then she said, can we come for the marriage? I said, yes, you are welcome. Then she did not ask what is the caste. She said, what's her name? Then she said, what's her father's name? Then they were relieved. Yeah. Because, anyway, I had put a precondition when somebody, it was sort of arranged, I should say. When a friend said, there is somebody with this qualification and she is like this, would you, how about the alliance proposal? I said, I'd like to speak to her. So I set an example. So you have to set an example. When you die, I'm sorry, not when you die, when someone dies. When I die also, again you will come to that. I have donated my body to the medical college. I learned anatomy on somebody's body. Let somebody learn anatomy on my body. That's the end of it. Yeah. When somebody dies in your family, immediately the emotional blackmail comes. That you have to send the soul to heaven. And when somebody dies, it's a very emotional thing. When my mother died, the father tried to bring in emotions. But when my father died, I was in Uttarakhand conducting a workshop. And in my 5-day workshops, I am the only resource person.
Right.
And the news came in the middle of a workshop. And people asked, क्या हुआ sir? I said, मेरे पिताजी गुजर गए. तो they said, अब ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम खत्म. I said, नहीं भाई चलेगा. I said, आपके पिताजी गुजर गए and ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम खत्म. I said, yes. आप ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम चला रहे? I said, yes, चला रहा हूँ. I said, क्यों सर, आप नहीं जाएंगे? I said, अगर मेरे जाने से वो फिर जिंदा होते तो मैं जरूर चला जाता, लेकिन ऐसा तो नहीं होगा ना. You have to only cremate the body. That I made the arrangements and come. Sometimes it may look very cruel, but the thing is that you work for the living is more important than mourning for the dead. And I would like a similar thing to happen when I die, so that some living people get the benefit. If I'm in a brain dead state, I would like my organs to go for those who could use them. And when I die from natural causes, see, there again it comes natural causes. Because if somebody gets me before that, my body will not go for dissection. It will have to be cremated, and it will be done without any religious ceremony.
Right. So you have famously put out a million rupee challenge, I would say, to astrologers and those claiming supernatural abilities. One might say it's almost the Indian version of James Randi's $1 million challenge. Can you tell us something about this, and has anyone ever come close to winning it?
Winning it? That's a joke. But challengers have run away when it came to the appropriate time. For example, I say produce something from nothing, from thin air. For example, I just take my hand and wave it in the air like this and do like this, and here I get a chain. Simple as that. If you can do it under my conditions, you will get my million rupees. How did I do it? Very simple. Here is a plastic thumb. Put something into it. Just wave your hand like this. Then just do like this. And when you're watching this, the thumb goes. These are all very cheap, small time tricks. See, those fellows who are claiming to have supernatural power are just bluff and bluster. Nothing beyond that, because every time somebody put a challenge, they simply run away, escaped. In fact, I think midbrain activation, there's something called like that. That I think deserves a separate treatment. We'll talk about that maybe later. But let me tell you what happened around 2 years back. There was a fellow called as Nagaraja something. He hit the headlines in TV by saying that he could detect a Nagarakallu, that stone which Naga image is called, under 6 feet of concrete and tiles, and got a lot of publicity by digging it out from somewhere. And so I gave him a challenge. I said, well, I will bring a Naga stone. You give a Naga stone, I said. First, I gave him a challenge that I'll put a Naga stone along with a currency note. When you are visualizing the Naga stone, you visualize the currency note also. And give me the serial number of that. I'll give you all my property. Why only 10 lakhs? He said, that I can't do. I can visualize only a stone. I said, okay, do that. Then we had a TV confrontation. I told him, well, I am making a protocol. And when are you ready? That was in November, I think, 2019. He said, up till February, I have got appointments, then I am ready. Now, it is February 2021, still not to be heard of. I got 4 Naga stones made. I went to Karkal. He said, I will not give you a stone because you may realize that I kept some radio receiver or something, so get your own stones made. And I said, I will get them made. He said, when you are making stones, be careful. It is not a simple thing. It's a Naga stone. Imagine that. I said, okay, don't worry. I'm an atheist. Those 4 stones are lying around there. And I got one with 1 head, one with 2 heads, one with 3 heads, and other one is blank. And I had a protocol for it that I'll take 20 identical boxes and keep 1 or more of them and of equal weight and ask him to identify in which is which. Right. And then draw the diagram, and then we will open it and check. But was the protocol, I didn't tell him about the protocol, but I said I'll set a protocol. But the moment he heard it, I think he chickened out. He is nowhere to be heard of. Then maybe after 4 or 5 months, again the TV channel asked me, what happened to him? I said, you ask him. He has run away. Now he's not to be heard of. This is the last thing that happened. Otherwise, there are people who, there was one Bhaskar Shetty, who said he will teach me a lesson about astrology. I said, I'll give you 10 date, time, place of birth. Tell me who is dead, who is alive, who is male, who is female. If 19 out of these 20 answers are correct, then he said, no, 19. I said, okay, 18 of the 20 are correct. I'll give you 10 lakhs. And he said, okay, I'll take it. I said, okay. This happened nearly 10 years back. And again, I don't know why this month February comes. He said, in February, my son's marriage is there. Afterwards, I'll take it up. Now it is February 2021. 10 years are over. Bhaskar Shetty is not to be heard of. Do you know why he thought he could take the challenge? I put this question in many of my programs. I ask people, what are the chances of guessing the right answers? They say 50%. I tell them, no, it is not 50. It is 1 by 2 to the power of 18.
Right.
So probably initially he thought it is 50-50. Why not take a chance?
Some
Then only he
statistician must
realized
have
that it is 1 by 2 to the power of 18. So he chickened out.
Right.
So these are the way that things happen. Another man called as Yogi Ashwini, his actual name is something else. He took a challenge, some yoga challenge. Like that it goes on. He said he'll look at 10 photographs and predict. And I said, okay, I'll bring 10 photographs. He said he'll send somebody to do that at Bangalore. Somebody came, but they said they want to invite somebody else. I said, anyway, do it. The photos are here. And then I think on an NDTV program, both of us were there, face-to-face confrontation was there. And this so-called Yogi Ashwini chickened out. So this is what we see happening. See, they take the challenge, bluff and bluster, and because they do not expect anybody to stand up to them, because everybody will respect a so-called holy man. So I don't have anything for that. I just consider them as equal. Why should I fall at anybody's feet or anything like that? This man Nityananda, who has now gone to Kailasa, he became Kailasavasi. This man gave me a curse through his cheli. Because I questioned him, they were doing some blindfold reading. I said, I will take a challenge, I'll give you 5 lakhs. Then he cheli gave me a curse. Within 24 hours, you will end with carcinoma of you know what. You know where their mind is fixed, of that part. And she said, you come to Bangalore and fall at the feet of my Lord, and then you will be rid of it. 3 years are over and I am still around without any cancer or anything like that. And he has run away to Kailasa. So it keeps on happening. There are hundreds of instances are there. Right from the roadside prestidigitator to this so-called sophisticated. Another man called as Khurrana. He says his son is something, some film actor. He was supposed to speak in
Chandigarh.
Chandigarh,
Yes,
yeah.
I remember.
There I had a confrontation with him. He literally ran away from the place. He was claiming success and 5,000 rupees per minute for his consultation and things like that.
Sir, a few years ago, there was this thing called midbrain activation, which you mentioned. It gained popularity in a lot of cities, and especially it was aimed towards young children. Please tell us something about what this midbrain activation is for those of who may not be aware about it. How did you fight it, and what was the result of that?
And I think a lot of students of yours must have undergone it because it started around 5-6 years back. See, in 2010 or something, I was asked, I was in Delhi, I was invited by TV channel to check a girl called as Ranjana Agarwal was her name. And she claimed that she could read blindfolded and she had a certificate from the Government of India, Department of Science and Technology, that she can read blindfolded. And it was a 2-hour program. And all the time they kept on dragging. And finally, when it came to my turn to examine her, she started weeping. Said, "Mere aankhon mein dard ho raha hai." I got angry. It was live. They could not block it. I said, "क्या आंखों में दर्द? अभी तक पूरा नाटक चल रहा था. अभी बोल रहे आंखों में दर्द हो रहा है. जब मैं आता हूँ आंखों में दर्द होता है. इसके पहले क्या क्यों नहीं दर्द हुआ?" I shouted at her, and that got live. There was an ophthalmologist on the panel, and this lady was telling me on the sidelines, "Sir, she is myopic, that's all, there's nothing else. She's peeping from the blindfold downwards." I said, "Why don't you open your mouth?" He said, "No, sir, no, sir." Ophthalmologist telling me that. And another ophthalmologist said that he certified it with the man with MS in ophthalmology from KMC Bangalore. His name is some Patil. He certified that, and that was on YouTube. And it was being used by some organization called as Efficient Brainy or some other organization. A certificate by ophthalmologist with MS in ophthalmology. And that I showed to the head of his department, a very senior ophthalmologist, Dr. C.R. Kamath. I went and told him, give me 10 minutes. He said, okay, when you are asking, I can't help it. I said, watch this video. He said, what man, don't waste my time. I said, sit down, you promised me 10 minutes, keep your patience out, see this video. And when you were seeing it, I could see his face getting red and red. And said, what is this fellow talking about? My student he is. I gave him an ophthalmoscope and all, and now he's saying that children can see without light falling on the retina. See, people are claiming, in short, that the children can see without light falling on the retina. Can you imagine that? That took perfectly. This I started with that 10 years back, and then I forgot about it. And then in 2015 or so, I saw some posters in Bangalore with children blindfolded and claiming that midbrain activation, they can see and all that. I knew that it was peeping through the blindfold. We exposed it, we challenged it, and one man took my challenge. As I was telling you that I'll speak about it. That's on YouTube also, that video, and I think it has got around 4 lakh hits. That is midbrain activation exposed. That is the only video about midbrain activation exposed, and it's around 1 hour, and it was a challenge taken by a man called Vinod Surendran. He was running some midbrain thing there, and then he took the challenge. He said that he will bring his children. He fixed a date. He fixed a hall in Calicut. With some 20,000 rent for that hall. And just 3 days before the thing was to happen, he says, my children cannot function in adverse circumstances. You know, miracles disappear when skeptics come, that's all. And then he didn't turn up. So what I did was I trained children of our activists to do all the stunts that they do, and they showed it. That too within minutes. Children learn it within minutes. And they did all the blindfold reading, blindfold walking, all that. And when it was going on, some people from the audience whose children were midbrain activated came to challenge me. I said, okay, come on. Then blindfold was put, they managed to peep through that. Then I took out a patch. And when they saw the patch, the children panicked. Because this eye patch would cover the whole eye. And they will not allow them to open this. Then the children panicked. And then, of course, it was very bad. I don't like to do that. But the children wept in front of the audience. It was a fully crowded press conference. And that got huge publicity. And midbrain activation was kicked out from Kerala. 2 magicians stepped into the picture and they showed all the tricks. And then I started a campaign against it, going around the country and exposing it. In a place, Pondicherry, there was one midbrain activation academy. And my program was in a school where when it was over, the headmistress of the school came and thanked me very much. But what for? You have to thank you. You gave your school for our. I said, no, sir. Just tomorrow I was supposed to admit 2 of my daughters for this midbrain activation, paying 40,000 each. Imagine 40,000 each. And now I know it is nonsense. And later on I came to know the owner of the only midbrain activation academy in Pondicherry was sitting at the back of the audience and he was watching it. And then he went and locked his shop and went away and never came back.
Right. So this is a very interesting thing because generally we tend to associate the supernatural or the so-called miracles with religion, but midbrain activation is one which would be probably be categorized as a pseudoscience, because generally for a common person, anything that uses a lot of scientific jargon is science. This has led to a lot of people taking advantage of society's ignorance, I would say, and pushing pseudoscience, sometimes even by top leaders and administrators of the country. So as a common man, how does one distinguish between what is science, what is pseudoscience?
Apply your test of reason to it. That's all. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, you would have seen the pseudoscience coming up. Non-science, pseudoscience, and bad science. All the three came out during COVID-19. And if somebody says that somebody can see without light falling on the retina, what is the use of millions of years of evolution which made you react to that? And you are saying that. And people are thinking that children do not lie, but children can be trained to lie. And they have been threatened also. They are threatened that they'll go blind if they reveal the trick. That's what I found out later by questioning them. And in fact, in Dakshina Kannada, the reaction to midbrain activation was very good. The then DC, I forgot his name, quit his job.
Shashikant
Senthil, yes. He quit his job later on.
Right.
He issued a order saying that, claiming that children can see blindfolded cannot be allowed. He passed an order. The DDPA was asked to investigate. Of course, that thing closed and the fellow ran away. And then he was threatening to sue me for defamation. I said, you are welcome. Go ahead, you should sue me. And I said, if you do that, I'm going to defend myself. I'm not going to engage a lawyer because I know how to defend myself.
Right. So we are talking about the pandemic. There was a lot of talk about immunity boosting remedies and herbal cures for COVID. In fact, many people would readily agree to take these, saying what is the harm? But today we see a lot of distrust about a vaccination that has been scientifically tested very rigorously. So what do you think about this?
So let's first start with the immunity boosting business. Is it like treating snake bites? 95% of the snake bite victims, nothing happens to them. So you can claim 95% success rate, right? And we are bothered about the 5% who die, right? Similarly, when it comes to COVID-19, what is an immunity booster? You give high doses of vitamins, what happens? If they are water-soluble vitamins, they'll get excreted in the liver. If they are fat-soluble vitamins, they'll get stored in the liver. And once the storage capacity is exceeded, they'll cause toxicity, like vitamin D can cause toxicity. But people do not understand it. They think that by taking large amounts of vitamins, because they're seen in comics that a dog grows like a huge thing when it is given vitamins. So they think that that will happen in real life too. People are not trained to question. That is the main thing that happens in our society. Surrender yourself to the guru. Surrender yourself to the elders. The child stops asking questions at a very young age because the questions are discouraged. The child is attacked. Shut up, what do you know? What do you want to know all that? It is because the parents or the elders, they do not have the answer. They try to suppress the child by saying, shut up. And the child grows up like that, never questions. And the tendency is carried on in the life. For example, this is around 25 years back. I had gone to a place called Malur in Kolar district. And there I was supposed to have some 3 or 4 programs. And they said one of them got cancelled. So the school which had invited me, they said, will you speak to our students? I said, okay. They said 9th and 10th standard students. The others have a program in the evening, they'll come later. You talk to them. About what? They said, about your subject. I said, my is a highly specialized subject. So let me talk about human body and disease and all that. And I started at 11. It went on up to 1, 2, 2:30. It was still going on. Children, imagine not going for lunch and asking questions. And the teacher said, our children had so many questions. We never thought so. They have not even gone for lunch. They are still asking you questions. I said, it is because you never gave them the opportunity to ask. That is why you do not know how many questions they had. So this is what I see happening. Particularly when you go to the middle class, the lower middle class schools. In fact, our culture says that surrender yourself to the guru, as if the guru is infallible. So this is what happens in a society which is bound by these things. Or say headmen. If you go to the so-called lower caste, they may be following a head of a clan or somebody like that, like a Khap Panchayat. That's why all these things happen in this country. Or maybe they may be following a mullah or a parish priest or somebody like that. Independent thinking is never encouraged. It's because of that this happens in our country.
It's important to create an atmosphere where asking questions is encouraged.
Yes.
There is one question from a viewer called Sanvi. She asks, can you throw some light on dreams and subconscious? Is it something that is scientific?
I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist to put much things on that. But in dreams, as the very name suggests, you do things which you think you cannot do in real life. So what is suppressed comes out. Maybe sexual desires, maybe material desires, maybe desires for love. And all these things tend to come out. The phobias, the fears, all those come out during the dreams. You leave out what you could not do it in your actual life. So that is it. But if dreams are a premonition of something, for that I would say your memory is very selective, because you remember only those things where something happens the way you dreamt. Otherwise you forget it. For that I say you keep a record of your dreams, write them down as soon as you wake up.
Right. Sir, what is the meaning of scientific temper? Like we used that word before. So, my question is not just what is the meaning of scientific temper, but is our current education curriculum equipped to inculcate the necessary skills for developing rational and critical thinking?
See, that word scientific temper you use is a typical Indianism, like non-veg, cousin brother, co-brother, and all that we hear. It's a typical Indianism. It was coined by the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. He said it is that attitude of the mind which questions everything before accepting it. It's as simple as that. This is what Gautam Buddha said. This is what he said in Upanishad. And this is what we have forgotten now. That's all I should say. And for that, we should have true education, not the learning by rote that is emphasized upon now, saying that you appear for some competitive exam. Children always ask me, my friends, children, they ask me, what should I become when I grow up? I said, what do you want to become? But my father says you become an engineer. My mother says you become a bank employee. Another person says become an accountant. I said, I tell you only one thing, become a good human being. The rest of the things automatically follow. My nephew, who grew up with me, he said, I want to become an archaeologist. I said, very good, become one. Then he said, I want to study history. I said, become very good, do that. Then he said, my mother wants me to do this, my father wants me to do this, my grandmother wants. Said, I want you to study what you want to do. Then he got an accident, and when he recovered, he told me, how do I study for medicine? I said, okay, you start. And of course he did. Got his MBBS, he got his MD. Now he's a forensic medicine, and I think he took his coaching for CET from Expert.
Right.
He is now in Malaysia, is teaching forensic medicine, and for him Sherlock Holmes was a hero. I gave him collected works of Arthur Conan Doyle as present, the Sherlock Holmes volume. There are 2 volumes of that. And of course, he realized his ambition. I'm just giving you one example, that's all, of somebody who grew up with me.
Right. So, you have been featured many times in documentaries on National Geographic, BBC, etc. Now, we hardly see Indian media exposing so-called godmen and miracle mongers, because on the contrary, many news channels are regularly spread far-fetched conspiracy theories. I remember once seeing this channel where they were talking about Ashwathama Zinda Hai and such things, which I thought, what is the need for such things?
They go by TRPs.
Right.
Okay. No, see, some of our documentaries have got very high TRPs. Once I was in a studio of one of the channels in Delhi, and they were saying Kranti Veer. They sent their vehicle, picked me up, and they made me sit there. Then my program was supposed to go somewhere. I said, ये क्रांतिवीर 9:30 बजे को है, इसके बाद मेरा प्रोग्राम कब होगा भाई? He said, क्रांतिवीर आपका प्रोग्राम है सर, आप क्रांतिवीर है. Oh, I thought, oh, they made me a क्रांतिवीर. They go by TRPs. See, another program, I'm giving a few examples. I've been on hundreds of programs because they want to have a token rationalist. But what happens is I'm not a token rationalist. I'm a full-blooded rationalist. In one program, sometimes I tend to divert a little, but I hope you'll excuse me. It was about the soul. And there was a neurosurgeon, there was a psychiatrist, there was an engineer turned past life regression therapist, and I was the other guy. The neurologist was talking about the brain and soul and impact of that. I asked him, the neurosurgeon, I asked him, are you the only neurosurgeon in the world? Which part of the brain was the soul? Tell me that. And if that part is extirpated, what will happen to the soul? And he had no answer. And then he made some other statement. I said, and he said it's scientifically proved. I said, where is the publication for that? He said, there are so many. I said, don't talk about so many. Show me one. And he was flabbergasted. The other man, the past life regression therapist, was talking about the Malaysian Airlines crash when the plane crashed into the sea and it went down and water was coming into the plane and bubbles were coming out of the mouths of the passengers and all that. I told him, you are a fool. You don't know that when the plane hits, it's like hitting a concrete wall, it will go into pieces. And you're talking about the past life. And then, when the program is over, the psychiatrist on the panel calls me and says, sir, you did a very good job of demolishing that neurology. I said, what did you do? You are a psychiatrist, you are a professor, you are the head of a unit, you are MD in psychiatry. Why didn't you ask questions? I said, no, sir, Pujugara, I feel a bit delicate. I said, that is why all these things are happening. See, people, why should they feel delicate? When the other man is talking nonsense, question him. And then I very rarely get invited for this panel discussion because I'm tough.
Right. So, and I think that toughness, we have seen a lot of assassination of several rationalists in the recent past,
Yes.
such as Narendra Nayak, Govind Pansare, M. Kalburgi, etc. Have you ever been attacked for the work that you've been doing, and how do you keep going ahead in the face of such threats?
I become a part of life. That's all. See, they tried to kill me by cutting off the brake cable of my scooter. They didn't cut it properly, they left a few strands. So that when I brake in an emergency, the brake failed and I go and kill myself. Somehow I found that because the remaining strand got cut when I was starting with the brake. And then I heard some sound and I checked. And when I took it to the garage, the man told me, we never seen that rear brake cable cut so far. It happened once, it happened to me again, 2 times. So then they put a rubber hose on that and said you check every time before you start your scooter. So that's what I've been doing for years. And sometimes I've been attacked. In fact, in a program in town hall in Bangalore in 1992, I was attacked by a mob. And then they said, let us see how you will have another program in Bangalore. After that, I've had 500 programs. What are they doing? They are just seeing. That's all. They threaten people, and if you are going to succumb to it, fine. And the man who had threatened me there, anyway, I think the time is, so I keep on.
That's okay.
Talking. It goes on. Yeah. The man who organized that thing, I forgot his name, he is a member of the Lions Club. There was a program in Lions Club, say, after 20 years. And he introduced himself to me. And he said, do you remember me? I said, I know. I don't remember. He said, I am something, he said his name, some Prabhu. I said, no, I don't. He said, do you remember the program in 1992? I was the man who came and started fighting with you and disrupting it. And I apologize for that now. And when he insisted that he introduced me to the audience, and when he spoke, he said, I spoiled this program in 1992 and I'm apologizing for it in public. And I think that India needs 1,000 Narendra Nayaks. One is not enough. That's what he said there.
Right.
So I think that was a great time for me.
Yeah.
That's what I felt.
Sir, a common thing we hear people say here is if I follow a certain superstition or if I go to an astrologer, what is the problem? It is my belief and I'm not forcing anyone else. But can superstitious beliefs turn dangerous?
Yes. I think I've got a PowerPoint presentation here. No, yeah, this is one small thing where a camphor was put on a girl's palm in Bangalore for Satya Pariksha and it got burned. She was not complaining about that. Now, if you see the picture of these two girls and if you see the next picture, yes, here you see MSc, MPhil, PhD and a gold medalist. You know what they did? The previous two girls are the daughters of these two great people. The younger one was killed first The elder one was killed afterwards. And the only two people, other people there were these two parents with these big degrees. And it seems, we do not know the story, but the elder one killed the younger one, and then she asked herself to be killed so that she'll go back and bring back her soul. And the girls, one was doing MBA, other one was studying in some music academy, and all of these are educated. Gold medalist, MSc, MPhil, PhD, associate professor. I had a program in that college, I think, in Madanapalli. And when things like this happen in this country, what can you say? Do you think astrology is, because some astrologers advise them? An astrologer advises you not to take medical treatment. What do? Nothing will happen to you. One of the girls I know, this happened 25 years back, no, 20 years back. She went to an astrologer. They told her she was having some cough. There's nothing, no problem at all. Nothing will happen to you. But I insisted that she go for a biopsy. It was Hodgkin's. They had to do an open biopsy. And if she had followed the astrologer, what would have happened to her? So I'm saying this happened in my personal circles. So superstitions are not as harmless as you think them to be. They are not. My father lost everything because he believed in an astrologer. That astrologer said nothing will happen to you. And we lost everything. We are one of the richest families in this place. And we lost everything because of ours belonging to my father, because he believed in astrologers. And whenever a crisis came up, early morning he would take his horoscope and go to the astrologer. To the extent that I was studying in Madras, once he told me, go and talk to the bank manager. How our building was taken over by the bank. So he said, go and ask the manager how much we should pay for it to be released. So I went and asked the manager. The manager asked the clerk and he said some 48,922 rupees 50 paise. You pay, we'll release the building. We don't want your building. Then he said, where is your father? I said, he has not come. He said, yes, he will not come because I'll shout at him. He said, your grandfather is going to pay up or what? I said, no, I don't know. Then I went and asked my father, who was standing far away, will grandfather pay or something? He said, no, tomorrow I am going to win the lottery. The astrologer told me, and he showed me a lottery ticket. I said, what is this? I was 17 years old. He said, shut up. The astrologer predicts everything correctly. Tomorrow we'll get 1 lakh, we'll pay off the loan, rest of the money we'll keep. So next morning, though I was skeptical, I was an atheist, but not that badly. We looked at the paper, not even the 5 rupee price. I know relationships which have been broken up because of astrologers talking nonsense. And you know, I spell astrology with ASS. And I stand by it. Because people have threatened me, we'll sue you for defamation. You have written astrology. I said, so go ahead. Welcome.
Right. Sir, because now talking about that incident that happened recently in Madanapalli, we generally think that education is enough to bring us out of ignorance or make us more aware of what is good for us. But why does it happen that even someone very highly educated
You
falls
said
prey?
education. What is there in our country is literacy. You may be literate in engineering, in a particular branch of engineering. You may be literate in a particular branch of medicine. You may be literate in physics, chemistry, mathematics, or anything. But you are as uneducated as the illiterate person next door when it comes to things like this. Because you have got a window. Only that window opens. Rest of the things are like anybody else. That's why you have these people going after these godmen. And I know a doctor here who injected himself with vibhuti. He was a Sai Baba devotee. He injected himself with vibhuti and he died of tetanus. Because he thought that Baba had come in his dreams and said, inject yourself with vibhuti. He did that. So, I don't think education and scientific temper or rational thinking go together. No. We have to train people to think rationally. You know, in England, when I showed something, say, this is magic, the kids. But here, even the adults will fall at your feet. And You give the vibhuti, they'll keep it and say, apply it on their heads. And only when in the end you say something, oh, is it so? And in fact, for a program, I got a report of a program from somebody else. He said, he gave vibhuti, then he did this, he did that, he did that, he did that. I got his secret. You know what is the secret? It is that vibhuti. Once you take the vibhuti, you are totally in his control. You don't know what happens. Until he allows you to go, you are totally under his control and you believe what he says. That is the sort of superstition among our people. What do you say for that? See, in Mangalore, where we are supposed to have highly educated people, a 7-year-old girl was sacrificed near Polytechnic here. Just imagine this.
So, do you think people from the science field are partially responsible for not doing enough to create awareness in the masses? Because one might also go to the extent that some scientists have actively participated in spreading misinformation.
Yes.
Where should the responsibility lie?
See, I was asked to deliver a Sanjay Biswas memorial lecture in Indian Institute of Science. They said, you select the topic. I said, my topic will be silence of the scientists, a boon to scamsters. That was my topic. I spoke about 2.5 hours. I don't know whether you were there for that. But I spoke for that time, telling them how your silence is helping these people, these scamsters, to flourish. You are not questioning them. When somebody says pan antiviral, broad spectrum antiviral, show that yeah. Don't just claim it. You can say common cold will be cured by my concoction. It will be. It will be cured even if you don't take your concoction. See, when this pandemic came up, as you were saying, all these things came up, irrational claims, that people are falling for it. And something which is something else became an immunity booster. Right from the fellow selling fish on the roadside to fellows selling dry fruits, everybody says my concoction, my product is an immunity booster. And this is how it happens. Somebody said if you, and some other people saying that this type of a diet, somebody said if you eat meat, fish, egg, your COVID-19 will just die of it. I ate fish, egg, chicken every day. I was suffering from COVID-19 and I survived it.
Right.
Without any problems.
Right. So, but what about the distrust that people have right now regarding the vaccination?
Yeah. See, we are having the 3 types of vaccines. One is the mRNA vaccines, where you inject the mRNA in a liposome into the body, and this mRNA codes for the spike protein. And that requires a lot of preservation, and that is the principle of the 2 vaccines in US, the Pfizer and the Moderna. They are supposed to be very efficient. Then we have the Covishield in India, which is the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine it is called, where it is linked to an adenovirus. You have another Russian vaccine linked to that adenovirus. But what is available in India are the 2. One is called as the Covishield, that is the AstraZeneca one, the Oxford vaccine, and the other one is the Bharat vaccine, which is called as Covaxin, which is the inactivated virion. And that is the oldest technology in vaccines. So, but number 1, the Covishield has passed phase 3 of clinical trials, but the Bharat vaccine has not passed the phase 3 of clinical trials. And what is being tried is a massive phase 3 clinical trial by injecting people with that, and that is why some people are apprehensive. But what I would say is better have antibodies than have none at all. Then people said, what about yourself? I said, I already have antibodies. I have been naturally vaccinated. Probably I think I caught it twice. Once I had it in March, and in August, when any fever would be considered by default as COVID, I had fever. And when I called my physician, he said, if you are having it a proper attack, it means that what you got in March is not that. If you what got in March is that, and if you got it again now, it will be maximum for a day or 2. And what he said became exactly true. It just lasted for 2 nights and intervening day. But rest of the few symptoms were there, and I was all right the next day. So that means a previous infection will give you some sort of protection. That's what I feel.
So there was a strong push for an anti-superstition law in several states, including Karnataka. Why is such a law needed, and what is the current situation of
It
that?
is not an anti-superstition law. It is anti-black magic and anti-inhuman acts. See, in 2013, when Narendra Nayak was assassinated, I was having a national level workshop. The next day we had a protest. And in that I put a proposal that such an act should be enacted for Karnataka also. Gauri Lankesh was there and many others were there. Then the proposal was taken up. Two drafts were made. One by the National School of Law, other one is that State Law University, I think, in Dharwad. Both the drafts, I think, were released by Kalburgi. In one of the things, Kalburgi and I were together. And then, what happens? Kalburgi gets killed. And then, we have a meeting. There are thousands of people. The Matadis had called the meeting and I was not invited to speak. Then suddenly they say, he will speak now and two ministers are coming, now you talk. I told the ministers, see, when Dabolkar was killed, I asked for a law. Kalburgi was killed and now we are asking for it again. How many more of us do you want to be killed for this to become law to be passed? The ministers got upset. They said, no, it's not like this, it's like that. They explained. And I should say, sadly, that what I predicted came true. Gauri Lankesh was killed on the 5th of September 2017. It was passed in November 2017. Sad. And in March 2017, they tried to get me. And then I escaped. And Gauri calls me and tells me, be careful, why are you behaving like this? And I asked her, what about you, Gauri? She said, Adella namge agalrappa. I don't know what she meant by that. But when I was somewhere in UP Bagpat, I got this news and I was shocked. And then the law gets passed and the government changes. The present government is not bothered about it. It is not an anti-superstition law. Remember that superstitions cannot be eradicated by any law. They can be eradicated only by true education. But you can control the most dangerous, the most inhuman of the practices which are already covered by criminal law. In fact, there is nothing new in that. Some of the new things are brought under the purview of that, that's all. Right. The indignities.
Right. There is one, we are almost over time, but we'll end up with a few, just a couple of questions. There's a viewer, Ashwin Nayak, who asks, what do you suggest for government and businesses to incentivize a rational drive over pandering to the traditional pseudosciences?
See, you put them to the proper scientific tests. For example, if you claim that Ayurveda does something or yoga does something, have the proper trials with randomization, double blinding, and if it works out, come down to the molecular level, find out the molecules. Ayurveda would flourish if it was, probably in the 18th century, Ayurveda was the best system of medicine available. But now what has happened? It has not progressed because of that. Of course, homeopathy is nonsense. I say that openly, that homeopathy is nonsense. But Ayurveda could have some active ingredients. So that is how you do it. Not by blindly following somebody who does something. In fact, one of the earliest experiments I had about Ayurveda was about Chyawanprash. And they said it is the richest source of vitamin C. Amla is there in that, and now people are understanding the importance of vitamin C. So I took Chyawanprash and analyzed it for vitamin C. It was 0. Why? Though it is Amla is a source for it. Because the process of preparation had destroyed every milligram of ascorbic acid that is there. It got oxidized, as simple as that. So we should have a proper evaluation. Then we could do that.
Right. So before we end, I would like to ask, what can today's students do to make sure that India has a brighter future? What would be your message to them?
Think rationally. Put everything to the test of reason. India has got an Infosys. India has got a Wipro. But does India have an Apple? One single laboratory, the laboratory of molecular biology, got some 7 or 8 Nobel Prizes directly and some 4 or 5 indirectly associated with Cambridge Laboratory of Molecular Biology. In India, we can boast of one single Nobel Prize, that too in 1920 or something. Why? It is because we are following things which are put as a routine, but we are not allowing original thinking. That's what should happen in this country. We should break out of the boundaries, we should break out of the limits, and we should apply, think originally. That's all. That's all I am telling. That's my only, I'm not saying advice. My remark, that's all I can say. I am no one to advise. When people ask me, what are you preaching? I said, I'm not preaching anything. I'm only practicing what I think is right. What you take from it, whatever take home message from that is your lookout.
Great. As the famous astrophysicist and science educator Neil deGrasse Tyson said, ignorance is a virus. Once it starts spreading, it can only be cured by reason. For the sake of humanity, we must be that cure. I think Professor Narendra Nayak has taken that first step among many to cure humanity of the virus of ignorance. It now lies in the hands of our youth to work towards a better future. Thank you very much, sir, for being our guest on this program.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Our next episode, dear viewers, will be a dive into the world of music. Our guest on the 14th of February is renowned musician, flautist, Praveen Godkhindi. Until then, I wish you all a great week ahead. Thank you and goodbye.